Ladies and gentlemen, we've all had moments when someone said something that got under our skin. Maybe it was a rude comment, a careless driver, or a friend who let us down. And in those moments, feels like our peace of mind is being held hostage by someone else's behavior. But what if I told you, you could be immune to that? What if you could move through life without getting angry or bothered by anyone ever again? Let me be clear. It's not about becoming numb or passive. It's about building emotional mastery. It's about reclaiming your power so that no one else controls how you feel. The truth is, people will always do things you can't control, but you can always control how you respond. And that's the key. Your reaction is your responsibility. It starts with awareness. When someone irritates you, pause. Ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? What button did this push in me? Most of the time, it's not even about the person. It's about something unresolved in us. Next, practice detachment. Understand that what people say or do is a reflection of them, not you. Their opinion is not your truth. Their bad mood is not your fault. You don't need to take it personally. Then build boundaries, not walls. Boundaries let you protect your peace without cutting off your compassion. You can say no without guilt. You can walk away without anger. Finally, shift your perspective. Every annoying person in your life is actually a teacher, a mirror, an opportunity to grow stronger, calmer, more patient. If you master this, if you train your mind like a muscle, you'll be unshakable, no longer at the mercy of moods, opinions, or insults. You'll walk through life grounded, confident, and free. So the next time someone tries to push your button, smile. You don't have to play their game. You've outgrown it. One of the most liberating truths you can accept is this: you are 100% responsible for how you react to anything and anyone in your life. While you cannot always control what happens around you, whether it's a rude comment, an unfair situation, or someone else's bad behavior, you are always in charge of your internal response. This isn't just a feel-good idea. It's a powerful principle that, once mastered, can dramatically reduce the amount of anger, frustration, and emotional disturbance you experience. Think about it. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you might feel an immediate surge of anger. But that anger isn't caused directly by the event. It's caused by your interpretation of it. Maybe you think, they disrespected me, or they're trying to get ahead at my expense. Those thoughts trigger the emotion. Another person might shrug it off, assuming the driver is rushing to an emergency. Same event, different interpretation, different emotional outcome. This proves the power lies within you, not outside of you. Taking full responsibility for your reactions doesn't mean you blame yourself when you feel upset. It means you own the power to choose a better response. This isn't about suppressing emotions either, about recognizing the moment where choice exists, the space between what happens and how you respond to it. Most people live in emotional autopilot. They get triggered and immediately react. But when you start taking ownership, you create a gap between the trigger and the reaction. In that gap lies your freedom. That's where you can breathe, step back, and decide how you want to feel and act, instead of letting your emotions dictate it for you. Responsibility is empowering. It means you don't have to wait for other people to behave better for you to feel better. You don't have to hope the world changes for you to find peace. You simply need to take control of the only thing you ever really had control over: your own state of mind. Once this sinks in, you realize that your peace is not in the hands of others. It's in your hands every single time. In moments of emotional intensity, the instinct to react immediately can be overwhelming. Someone says something disrespectful and your body floods with heat. A family member criticizes you unfairly, and before you know it, your voice is raised and words you didn't mean to say are flying out. But the key to never getting angry or bothered isn't found in how quickly you respond. It's found in how intentionally you pause. Pausing may seem like a small act, but it is an incredibly powerful one. It creates space between the trigger and your response. In that space, you gain clarity. You regain control. Without that pause, You're simply reacting, often from old patterns, ego, or emotional wounds. But with that pause, you shift from reacting to responding consciously. Pausing doesn't mean bottling up your emotions or pretending you're okay when you're not. It means giving yourself a brief moment to observe what's happening inside you. You ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling it? Is this really about the present situation, or is it tied to something deeper, like past hurt, insecurity, or fear? Often, you'll find that your emotional reaction is much bigger than the situation itself, is a clue that it's touching something unresolved within. This reflection helps you detach from the immediacy of the emotion, even if only slightly. It lets your logical, wise mind come back online, so you're not being driven solely by your impulses. And the beauty is, this practice doesn't take hours. It can be just a few seconds, one deep breath, one intentional pause, one mental step back. And it can change the outcome of the entire interaction. Over time, this habit of pausing becomes a natural part of your emotional toolkit. It allows you to make decisions that reflect your highest self, rather than temporary emotion. You begin to notice triggers before they pull you in. You become a witness to your emotions, instead of a prisoner of them. Pausing and reflecting is not a sign of weakness or passivity. It is a sign of strength, maturity, and emotional intelligence. It's the difference between creating peace and creating regret. One of the main reasons we get angry, upset, or emotionally shaken by others is because we tie our self-worth to what they think or say about us. A single negative comment, a dismissive gesture, or a judgmental look can send our minds spiraling into self-doubt or defensiveness. Why? Because we've been conditioned to believe that external validation defines our value. But the truth is, to truly become emotionally untouchable, you must learn to detach from other people's opinions, both good and bad. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about others or become indifferent. It means you stop allowing their thoughts, words, and judgments to dictate how you feel about yourself. It's about recognizing that people's reactions often say far more about them than they do about you. Their worldview, their wounds, their insecurities, all shape how they treat others. When someone lashes out at you, criticizes you, or tries to bring you down, it's often because they're projecting their own inner conflict outward. Understanding this changes everything. It shifts the question from, why are they treating me like this? To, what might be going on in them that's causing this behavior? That shift instantly reduces the emotional sting. You realize it's not personal, even if it feels like it is. When you detach from the need for approval, you reclaim your freedom. You stop constantly adjusting yourself just to please others or avoid judgment. You speak more honestly. You make choices based on your values, not someone else's expectations. You stop being a puppet pulled by invisible strings and instead become grounded in your own identity. This doesn't happen overnight. Detachment is a practice, one that begins with self-awareness and inner confidence. When you know who you are, you don't need constant reassurance. When you accept yourself fully, flaws, mistakes, and all, you don't fear criticism because it no longer defines you. And equally important is this: positive opinions can be just as addictive as negative ones are damaging. If you're constantly chasing praise, applause, and recognition, you become dependent on it. Detachment means being steady in your self-worth regardless of external noise. Being able to stand in a room full of critics or admirers and remain the same person. In essence, detaching from external opinions is about choosing inner validation over external approval. It's about recognizing that the only opinion that truly matters, the one that defines your peace, is the one you hold about yourself. One of the most powerful shifts you can make to protect your peace of mind is to stop taking things personally. This might sound simple, but in practice, one of the hardest and most liberating things you'll ever learn to do. Taking things personally is like giving others a remote control to your emotions. Their words, their moods, and their opinions become triggers, and without realizing it, you're letting their behavior define your sense of worth or emotional state. The core truth here is this what people say or do is a reflection of them, not you. Their anger, rudeness, criticism, or even indifference isn't necessarily about who you are. It's about where they are in their own mind and life. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're going through something heavy. Maybe they've never been taught how to communicate with kindness. Or maybe your behavior accidentally triggered their own insecurities or unresolved issues. None of that is about you. When you internalize this truth, start to build a kind of emotional armor, not a wall that shuts people out, but a healthy boundary that keeps other people's energy from infecting your own. You become less reactive, more understanding, and ultimately more free. Consider how often you've been in a situation where someone's tone or words felt sharp or dismissive, and your immediate reaction was to feel hurt or defensive. You had paused to consider what might be going on behind the scenes: stress, fear, pain. The emotional charge would have diminished. You would have realized, this isn't about me. They're dealing with something I can't see. That realization turns frustration into compassion and offense into perspective. Not taking things personally also empowers you to stay in control of your identity. You no longer let someone else's version of you become your truth. If someone calls you selfish, for example, instead of immediately getting upset, you can ask yourself honestly, align with who I really am. If it doesn't, you let it go. If it does, you reflect and grow, not out of guilt, but out of maturity. Either way, your reaction is rooted in self-awareness, not emotional reactivity. Mindset also helps you let go of the need to explain yourself to everyone. You realize that not everyone will understand your choices, your boundaries, or your values. And that's okay. Misunderstanding doesn't mean you're wrong or need to prove anything. When you no longer take their judgments personally, you're free to live authentically without constantly seeking approval or defending yourself. Ultimately, principle teaches emotional independence. It gives you back your power. You stop being at the mercy of others' words or actions and start living from a place of inner strength and emotional clarity. To live a life where you are no longer constantly angry, irritated, or emotionally drained by others, you must learn the essential skill of setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that define where you end and someone else begins. They are the limits you establish to protect your energy, your time, your emotional well-being, and your personal values. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with selfishness or fear that enforcing limits will make them appear rude, cold, or unloving. But in reality, boundaries are acts of self-respect. They are the foundation of any healthy relationship, not just with others, but with yourself. When you don't set boundaries, you're silently telling people that it's okay to overstep, to manipulate, to take advantage, or to ignore your needs. Over time, this leads to resentment, burnout, and yes, anger. You start feeling like people are constantly bothering you. The real issue is often that you haven't clearly communicated what is and isn't okay with you. Setting boundaries means being clear about your needs and limits, not with anger or defensiveness, but with calm, firm clarity. For example, you might say, I'm not available for phone calls after 9 p.m. or I need some space right now to recharge. You don't owe anyone long explanations or justifications. Boundaries don't need to be defended, need to be respected, first and foremost by you. It's also important to understand that healthy boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about controlling your access to them. You can't force someone to behave how you want them to, but you can decide what role, if any, they'll play in your life. You can choose how much time and energy you're willing to invest, and you can walk away from situations or people who repeatedly ignore your boundaries, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. What's powerful about boundaries is that they create emotional clarity. When you have strong boundaries, you know where you stand. You're no longer reacting to people's chaos or taking on their problems as your own. You're no longer overextending yourself to earn love, acceptance, or validation. You're standing in your truth and inviting others to meet you there. And boundaries aren't just for difficult people. They're also for people you love. Even the closest relationships need structure. In fact, stronger your boundaries, the healthier your connections become. You stop resenting people for crossing lines they didn't even know existed, and they begin to understand how to love and respect you better. Ultimately, setting boundaries is not about building distance. It's about creating space where love, respect, and peace can genuinely thrive. One of the most transformative mindsets you can adopt on your journey to inner peace is learning to see difficult or annoying people not as enemies, but as teachers. While it's easy to get irritated, offended, or drained by certain personalities, the loud coworker, the controlling relative, the inconsiderate stranger, these people can actually serve a deeper purpose in your emotional growth. They reveal where your patience ends, where your ego still reacts, and where your wounds still need healing. In this sense, they are not obstacles in your path, they are the path. When someone pushes your buttons, it's not just about them. It's also about you. Comfort you feel is a signal. It's highlighting something within you that needs attention, maybe an old belief, a fear of rejection, a need to be right, or an unresolved emotional trigger. These people act as mirrors, reflecting back to you the places where you're still reactive, where you still feel vulnerable, or where you've built stories about how others should behave. And that's where the opportunity lies. Reframing these people as teachers doesn't mean tolerating toxic behavior or excusing poor conduct. It means using the interaction as a moment for self-inquiry. Ask yourself, why does this person bother me so much? What does this reveal about me? Is there something here I can learn about patience, acceptance, boundaries, or letting go of control? Sometimes the lesson is about humility, realizing that we, too, have been difficult or frustrating to others at times. Sometimes it's about empathy, recognizing that the other person may be acting from pain or fear. And sometimes about clarity, understanding exactly what kind of energy you no longer wish to engage with. But in every case, there is a chance to grow. When you shift from frustration to curiosity, the entire emotional dynamic changes. Instead of being emotionally hijacked by someone's rudeness or ignorance, you observe it like a mindful student. You don't absorb their negativity. You study it, you learn from it, and you let it go. Mindset also disarms your emotional triggers. When you view someone as a teacher, they lose the power to provoke you. They become part of your inner training ground, not a threat to your peace. You start to thank life for giving you real-time opportunities to practice patience, compassion, and detachment, not just in theory, but in action. Over time, you'll notice that the same behaviors that used to drive you crazy no longer affect you the same way. Why? Because you've outgrown the need to fight them. You've learned the lesson, and the test no longer triggers you. Emotional evolution. In this way, annoying people become unlikely allies in your self-mastery. Without ever meaning to, they help you strengthen your emotional muscles, making you more grounded, more aware, and more unshakable than before. Just like physical strength doesn't come overnight, but through consistent effort. Emotional resilience, the ability to stay calm, steady, and unaffected by external chaos, must be trained and developed like a muscle. It is not something you are either born with or without. It's a skill that can be strengthened with conscious practice over time. Emotional resilience is your inner stability. It's what allows you to remain composed in the face of criticism, patient in the face of frustration, and unbothered when things don't go your way. Think of it as your psychological immune system. The stronger it is, the less likely you are to catch anger, anxiety, or offense from people and situations around you. Kind of strength doesn't come from suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't care. It comes from becoming aware of your emotions and managing them consciously. It comes from building habits that center you, ground you, and remind you that you are not your anger, your reactions, or your temporary impulses. You are the awareness behind all of that. Training emotional resilience starts with daily, intentional practice. Could be something as simple as practicing mindfulness, noticing your thoughts without judgment. It could mean journaling your emotional triggers so you can begin to understand them. Could involve breathing exercises when you feel reactive, learning to pause instead of exploding, or using visualization techniques to mentally rehearse calm responses in difficult situations. The real test and the real growth happens in the small moments. It's when someone cuts you off in traffic and you choose not to get angry. It's when someone speaks over you in a conversation and you decide not to take it personally. It's when you feel the old familiar rise of irritation. And instead of acting on it, you observe it, breathe through it, and let it pass. Each time you do this, you reinforce the muscle. Over time, just like physical exercise, the effort compounds. The same way push-ups make your body stronger, responding calmly to life's little annoyances makes your mind more powerful. What once made you snap or spiral no longer phases you. You begin to carry a kind of inner quiet. Not because your life has no chaos, but because you've stopped allowing chaos to live inside of you. Resilience doesn't mean you're immune to pain or disappointment. It means you bounce back faster, with less damage. You don't stay stuck in emotional spirals. You recover your peace more quickly. And eventually, that recovery turns into resistance, where triggers simply pass through you like wind, leaving no lasting effect. Just like with muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it. Emotional resilience must be maintained. The more you train it, deliberately, patiently, and consistently, the more natural it becomes. It's not about perfection, but about progress. And with time, you stop being easily thrown off course because you've built an inner foundation that nothing outside of you can shake. One of the greatest sources of anger, irritation, and emotional disturbance is our inability to let go. We hold on to words people said, things they did, or situations that didn't go the way we wanted. We replay conversations in our heads, wishing we had said something different. We carry emotional baggage from past interactions, sometimes from days, weeks, or even years ago. And all of this holding on creates an emotional weight that slows us down, clouds our clarity, and robs us of peace. Letting go is not about pretending something didn't hurt or minimizing your emotions. Not about giving people a free pass to mistreat you. Letting go is about choosing freedom over fixation. It's a conscious decision to stop reliving the pain and start reclaiming your energy. It means no longer allowing a person or situation to occupy space in your mind rent-free. When you don't let go, you stay emotionally entangled. You keep yourself tethered to the very thing that upset you. You might think, I let this go, it means they win, or I need to stay angry to protect myself. But in truth, holding on only hurts you. The other person has likely moved on, unaware of the storm still raging inside you. Meanwhile, you're the one reliving the experience, keeping the wound fresh. Mastering the art of letting go begins with understanding that your peace is more valuable than your pride, your ego, or your desire to be right. It means asking yourself, is this worth carrying any longer? What is it costing me emotionally to stay attached to this? Sometimes we realize that the pain of holding on far outweighs the discomfort of releasing it. Letting go also requires you to challenge certain thought patterns, like the need for closure, justice, or an apology. The truth is, you may never get the apology you deserve. People may never admit they were wrong. Situations may never resolve in the way you hoped. But none of that needs to stand between you and your peace. Letting go is not dependent on others. It's an internal process that you control. Practice doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means you're no longer emotionally chained to it. You remember, but the memory no longer stings. You acknowledge the past, but you're no longer anchored in it. You accept that not everything requires a reaction or a resolution. Sometimes the highest form of power is choosing silence over conflict and peace over proving a point. Letting go is also a practice. It doesn't always happen in a single moment. Sometimes you have to let go over and over again until the grip of the experience weakens. But with each repetition, you regain more of yourself. You become lighter, clearer, and stronger. You start to see that letting go isn't a loss. It's a return to your center, a return to the present moment, a return to your emotional freedom. One of the most liberating and at times confronting realizations you can have is that you are responsible for your inner world. Your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, they are all your domain. No one else has the power to make you feel something without your internal permission. People can do or say things that trigger emotions, but ultimately it is your interpretation, your beliefs, and your response that shape your experience. When you blame others for how you feel, he made me angry, she ruined my day, they stressed me out, you give away your power. You put your emotional state in someone else's hands, which makes you vulnerable to every mood swing, opinion, or inconsiderate action that comes your way. But when you take full responsibility, something shifts. Stop being a victim of circumstance and become the author of your emotional life. This doesn't mean that you deny your feelings or suppress them. Taking responsibility is not about avoidance. It's about ownership. Acknowledging your feelings honestly and then asking your deeper questions. Why am I feeling this way? What part of me is reacting? What story am I telling myself about this person or situation? You begin to see that the way you interpret events is often more painful than the events themselves. And when you change the way you view a situation, your emotional experience of it changes too. Kind of responsibility requires self-awareness. You need to observe your patterns. Do certain people always trigger you? Do you tend to react defensively when you feel judged? Do you carry resentment from past situations into present interactions? These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are invitations to grow. Each reaction is a clue leading you to a deeper understanding of your inner workings. Taking responsibility also means realizing that peace is not something others must create for you. It's something you must cultivate within yourself, regardless of what others are doing. You can't control the traffic, but you can control how you respond to it. You can't control your boss's attitude, but you can control whether you let it follow you home. You can't control every word that comes out of someone else's mouth, but you can control how much power you give to those words. This principle is both empowering and humbling. It means you no longer get to blame. You also no longer have to wait. You don't have to wait for people to change, for apologies to arrive, or for perfect conditions to feel calm and whole. You become the source. And when you do, external circumstances start to lose their grip over you. You carry your peace with you instead of constantly searching for it outside yourself. It's not always easy. Owning your emotional world means facing uncomfortable truths, recognizing your projections, and undoing years of automatic reactions. But it's worth it, because with responsibility comes freedom. The freedom to feel what you want to feel. The freedom to choose presence over reaction. The freedom to be anchored in yourself no matter what storms may come. In a world that's constantly buzzing with noise, opinions, distractions, and demands, learning to cultivate stillness and inner silence is one of the most powerful antidotes to being emotionally disturbed by others. The more time you spend anchored in your own quiet, grounded presence, less reactive you become to the chaos outside of you. Stillness isn't just a break from noise. It's a return to your true self, a space where peace naturally arises and reactivity fades. Most people live in a reactive state because they're never truly alone with themselves. They wake up and immediately check their phones. They move through the day consumed by to-do lists, constant notifications, social media, non-stop input. By the time someone says something irritating or disappointing, their emotional system is already overstimulated. There's no space to process, no buffer to absorb the blow, no gap between stimulus and response. That's where inner silence comes in. Practicing stillness can take many forms. It could be meditation, breathwork, prayer, quiet walks in nature, or simply sitting in a room with no devices and just observing your breath. What matters is that you create consistent moments to disengage from external input and tune inward. These moments act like a reset button, cleans your emotional slate and help you build a deeper connection with yourself. A connection that becomes your anchor when other people try to pull you off center. The more you practice stillness, the more you begin to notice your thoughts without becoming entangled in them. You start to witness your emotions rise and fall without being controlled by them. You discover that you are not your irritation, your judgments, your stress. Those are temporary states like clouds passing through the sky. Beneath them, there is always a deeper layer of calm that's available to you. But you have to get quiet enough to feel it. Stillness also strengthens your awareness, which is the foundation of self-mastery. When you spend time in silence, your awareness sharpens. You begin to notice the subtle ways your mind gets triggered, the patterns of your reactions, the emotional habits you've built over time. This awareness gives you choice. The choice to pause instead of snap, to respond instead of react, to breathe instead of blame. Over time, this practice reshapes your nervous system. You become less easily agitated because your baseline state is one of peace and spaciousness. Even when someone behaves rudely or a situation becomes tense, your first instinct is no longer to fight, flee, or freeze. Your instinct is to observe, understand, and choose wisely. That's the power of stillness. It creates space. And in that space, you reclaim your emotional freedom. Stillness is not about escaping life. It's about meeting life from a place of grounded clarity. It allows you to stop reacting to every bump in the road and instead move through your days with a steady, unshakable presence. It reminds you that the world can be loud, people can be unpredictable, and life can be messy. But you always have access to a quiet place within, untouched by it all. In closing, the journey to never getting angry or bothered by anyone is not about becoming indifferent or emotionless. It's about becoming deeply empowered. It's about choosing peace over chaos, presence over reaction, and growth over blame. You may not be able to control what others say or do, but you can absolutely control what you allow to live inside your heart and mind. Every situation, every challenge, and every difficult person is an opportunity, a moment to choose strength, to build awareness, and to come back home to your own stillness. And when you commit to that practice, day by day, you don't just protect your peace, you become it.